Good afternoon. Welcome to another week of We the People. We got a couple guests with us here today, along with the usual three stooges here, me, Hyacinth Yenny, and Jerry Pleasant. But we're going to be welcoming Ken Green, former state representative, and also Sean Arena, we're all, with the exception of Jerry, we're all running for town committee. Jerry's one of those.
Jerry's running too.
Jerry's one of those Republicans.
He just doesn't have a challenge. What happened to your democracy?
The Republican Town Committee is going through the Hartford cemeteries looking for people to fill seats. Anyways, it's a serious matter.
But I have to do my little announcement.
Hyacinth has her community notes first.
Yeah.
So
I
got
just
a couple things.
Yeah, a couple of things. I just want.
chest.
What is it, Jerry?
I'm gonna let you get it off your chest.
Okay, yeah, I do have to get it off my chest. What I just want to remind people that this coming Thursday is the Maple Avenue Revitalization Group's meeting. And we're going to be looking at our plan, and I have to thank some people for putting this plan together. What it is that every 10 years you have to go through your plan, your neighborhood strategic plan, and look at what you have done and what needs to be done. So we put it in the book so we have something to go off. So I think it's really important. So I really do want to thank Planning and Zoning, Roger O'Brien, and John McMullen and all his staff for really helping us, because as you know, we do not have a paid staff to do anything, so we rely on volunteer, and you guys have done a great job. So I'm hoping that you come and do the presentation on Thursday, 6 p.m., St. Augustine Church Hall. It's open to the public. We want to get public input because it has to go to the council for vote off. So it's really important for you to come out and look at it. If there's need to be anything to be added, then that needs to happen. But I'm encouraging you to come. That's Thursday, and it's at 6 o'clock at St. Augustine Church Hall. And also, we're planning to have somebody from Health and Human Service to talk about lead abatement. They're supposed to be doing a grant that will enable people in Barry Square to get their buildings that have lead. As you know, lead does a lot of damage to children, especially from 6 and under, stuff like that. So they want to get those leads out of people's home, and this is all free when the time comes. So I'm hoping that you'll come to hear more about this lead removal and be a part of the discussion, and maybe when the time comes, if we get that grant, then you will be on that list of getting help. And I also want to thank the fire department, Mario. He's such a great guy from the fire department, and he came out, and a lot of people signed up to get the smoke detector. And the smoke detector, the reason why they're special was because the batteries last 10 years. And a lot of our people have gotten those smoke detector, and they're very pleased, they're very happy about it. And so within our NRZ plan, the biggest project I have in there is the streetscape project. And that's what I'm going to be pushing on to get done. We have the little middle piece done, but we need to do the north and the south of Maple Avenue, because as I always tell everyone, I'm tired of piecemeal. If you're going to do something, do it right. So I'm hoping that Mr. Penegor will be listening, and let him know that this is something that's very dear to the neighborhood. We want to get this thing done, and we're going to work with Sina to get some of these, some of the money too. That's my plan, to work with Sina to get some of this money to help with that side, because the Institute of Living is on that side of Maple Avenue, so we need to get that done. New lamps, new trees, and proper sidewalks, so it's more safe for people to walk there and stuff like that. Okay, let's see what else I have. And don't forget to go to the Senior Center at 830 Maple Avenue and do a lot of stuff. My seniors, please do that. And also, I want to also thank Public Works. They have done a great job on the park, Goodwin Park. We drove around on Friday night, and it was well cleaned up. So I have to thank them for doing that. The big project there would be the fencing on South Side,
A
the
lot
South
of that was
Street.
damaged in the Halloween storm.
Right. So all of those fences are going to be removed, and the part of Hubbard Road, that's going to be also removed. There's an RFP went out for that already, so I'm hoping that's going to get done soon, because it's really dangerous when you look at that fencing on South Street. Anyone can hurt themselves there. Somebody might just do that for the fun of it. So I just want to thank Public Works and all the people that helps do all that job. So
Okay, and that's all the
Harrison,
time we have for today. Join us next week.
Hi, so before you,
everyone has a plan for their neighborhood.
before you leave,
Yes,
Sean
dear.
has a question.
Yes,
We were
Sean.
talking about the streets, actually two questions. The streetscaping, the money, where's the money come from? The state? The city,
State,
federal?
I would think the money come federal, state, and then
So
come
you
to
have
the
Congressman
city.
Larson's office involved?
Yes,
And the two
yes.
state representatives and the
Yes.
state senator whose
Yes.
offices this money goes
They,
through?
oh, my state.
I don't know
my,
if she has a state senator.
my
I haven't
state,
seen him around in a while.
I know, but my state senator is solely responsible to help me get this money.
And the fencing that you're talking about, they're talking
The
about putting
fencing is a
wooden
capital
fencing in?
improvement. It's going to be capital improvement money.
They're talking about putting wooden fencing in?
Yes.
Why wood?
It looks just like Goodwin Park.
Mm-hmm.
I mean Bushnell Park. That's something they're going to be putting
Putting
there.
it around it?
Yeah, and I think that will last a lot longer.
Yeah.
You know, look at the fence; it got rusty. It
Oh, it's
doesn't
terrible.
look good.
Yeah.
So I think that will look attractive there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the things
So-
that's going to be happening.
One of the ways of getting things like this done, and people that should be involved in your NRZs and getting things done for their neighborhoods, are town committee members.
Correct.
Oh yeah,
It's
town
something
committee.
that I don't think a lot of people understand what the
Right.
town committee does, what they
Right.
should be doing, and why it's really essentially time for a change to get people on the town committee
Yes.
who are going to be responsive to residents.
First of all, you need people who knows your community.
You ever get tired?
No.
She's my sister, so I can talk to her a little
Yeah,
bit,
right.
but- No, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, you need when you talk about
Just wanted-
representative.
Before we go much further, I think I already said it, but on the Democratic side, all four of us, with the exception of Jerry, are candidates for the town committee. So I think it's just fair that we put that out there. Take what
Right.
we say with a
Right.
grain of salt. We are candidates. Hopefully, we're telling you what we feel and you'll understand that.
Right.
But we are candidates.
Right, and I think the way I look at a town committee members are people of the community who knows that they can hold their representative that they endorse, elect to put there to do the job, hold them accountable. Because too many times people have gone into this thing, it's about what do I get for myself about there. And I think they've gone, way beyond what needs to be done. And sometimes they forget who they really represent.
Why don't we back up a step for
Okay.
people that don't understand what a town committee is?
Right.
Sean, you're a former Democratic town chair. Do you want to explain to us how you think the town committee should work? And
Sure. The Democratic Town Committee that I've been part of now for almost the whole time I've lived in Hartford, each neighborhood consists of so many members. Every 10 years that we just went through redistricting, the numbers change. They either go up or down depending on how many active and inactive Democrats are in that district. And that's how the registrar and the Secretary of State get involved to determine the numbers. The actual members, some of them are appointed if they're not elected. If you're elected in Hartford, you have to go out and you have to get a consent form, however many people have been allotted for that district. And then each one of those people will then go out and get petitions signed, depending on the number of how many voters are. And then that number will then determine how many people will be on that slate. The actual members, the work once they're elected, they're supposed to be meeting with the residents of the neighborhood. They're supposed to be calling their elected council people, their state reps, their state senators, and trying to work with their offices to get things done for their neighborhoods. Some people, and this is going on for the town committee since I've been involved probably before, are on it just to see what they can do for their one block area. They forget that there's blocks around them.
or themselves.
Or themselves.
I think most of the time it's about themselves. It's not really about even the block they live on, to be
Well,
honest
that's some
with you.
people, Hyacinth. That's not all of them.
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them.
Okay.
That is a group of people that are on there. There are a lot of people that get involved because their neighbors, maybe they're one of the children are having problems getting problems in school. Maybe something is happening with their streets that they're not being cleaned properly. Maybe garbage is being littered. Maybe lights are out. I got involved when I got involved 10 years ago because my street was never being swept. The lights were all being taken out. Nobody was changing them. And I kept going down to City Hall, and I was told, get involved with the town committee. And
Well,
that's how I got involved.
The town committees really are where the whole process starts.
Yes.
From electing your delegates to, for your candidates for city council, registrar of voters.
State reps, state
reps,
senators.
state senators,
Yeah.
all the way up, you endorse candidates.
That's right.
And that's where it starts. Ken, I know you had something to say, but you asked, as you were out getting signatures, you said you were asking an interesting question to most people. name 3 of your town committee members in your neighborhood. What kind of response did you
And I
get?
think that's the real problem that I think we have with the Hartford Town Committee, is that unfortunately, yes, there are some good people. I'm not going to talk about what their motivations are. I think sometimes it is personal. I'm not sure if that's the majority. I would probably say it's not the majority. The problem is this, as you said, Kevin, it's supposed to be sort of the first line of sort of folks getting involved in politics. A lot of people discourage with politicians. I was in the elected office, believe me. When you say you're running for re-election, they go, oh, you're a politician, we don't want to vote for you. But I was hoping to work better with my town committee, where they communicated with me what were the needs of the community. And it's unfortunate, the town committee are those unpaid, volunteer type of positions that's supposed to keep in touch with the people and connect them with the elected officials. And so really, the community should know who their town committee members are. Sometimes, I believe that you should know them sometimes before you know your elected officials, because they're your neighbors. They're the ones that's supposed to connect with, is there a street bulb out on my street? Is the garbage being picked up? They're supposed to help people understand the difference between, I think, local officials, state officials, and federal officials. We have different roles as local, state, and federal officials. And so you help the people know who to go to. And it's unfortunate when you don't get, say, good city services. Who can you talk to? Who can you complain to? You talked about going down to City Hall and they say get involved with the town committee. Yeah. The flip side of that is the town committee should be involved with the neighborhoods. It's really not, in a sense, the neighborhood trying to figure out who the town committee is. The town committee should go out and make themselves known. Every 10 years, through the process of redistricting, based on the state representative seats, you have town committees from those districts. And so we just had a redistricting just passed. It's a new district now in 2012. I understand that some people voting district will be changed. I think they just got the notice today. One of my constituents, former constituents, told me that they got their letter today saying a new voting place. So again, it's a lot of changes that are happening, and the town committee should be letting the people know.
Right.
I ask people, if you think that you should elect or re-elect the similar folks on town committee now, name 3 of them. They couldn't name them. I said, name 2 of them.
No.
Couldn't name them. I said, name 1 of them.
No.
They couldn't name
No.
them. We in the 7th, which is now the 7th district, which I'm a part of. I used to be in the 1st. The 1st and the 7th basically has been combined. We've also extended over to some parts of Asylum Hill. And we're going with a new direction. We're saying this. We want folks who have really not been involved in the town committee, but want to get involved in the community. And so we want to go with a new direction that folks are not interested per se in what their personal gains are. They're interested in what's happening with city services, what's happening with crime, what's happening with education, and we want to connect with them. And one of the first things we're going to do is make sure that the elected officials come out in the community and give periodic updates.
Right.
So, and that's, that's one of the things, and, I know Hyacinth does it. She's very responsive to your community and your neighborhoods where you live. I tend to think I am.
Yeah.
I get the phone calls, the emails all the time. I've gotten them, last summer, this park isn't being mowed, this trash isn't being picked up. We've got a crime issue here, and, for whatever reason, the police department's unresponsive. And, I kind of take pride in the fact that I'm able to get things done.
And
Maybe it's because I'm loud and vocal.
And you have this medium here through the media.
And Hyacinth does the same thing. Jerry, I know you get, actually all of us, I'm sure,
Yeah.
get the phone calls. But that's where it starts. If we're gonna make the city a better place, we've gotta be responsive. We can't disenfranchise people more than
Right.
they already feel.
Right.
So many people are turned off by politics because whether they call City Hall, they call 311, they call their council people. As an example, the park that, they were having trouble getting mowed last year, they had called the council president, they had called council people, they had called City Hall, and nothing was getting done. They finally called me, and within 2 hours, the park was mowed, more because they were afraid that I was gonna get
Yeah.
a TV station to come up and
Exactly.
point it out. But they know that there's people in the city that do get things done, and not just for themselves.
Yeah.
There's one thing I could say, that we do share information among ourselves. Hyacinth may call me and ask.
You're a
me-
Republican, we don't tell you too much.
But even with the Republican, we work with them, right?
Because in the end, it's all about all of our citizens.
Right,
Yes.
right.
regardless of
And
their party
so,
affiliation.
contrary to what some people may think, we have a fairly good.
We got a pretty good
that's-
relationship
yeah.
with every,
We should clear up another point too. I think there's still at least 35 or 40 Republicans left in Hartford. They do their town committees a little differently. They do it in a caucus where they all get together in a room and the people from each district, make their selections and vote. It really, unless there's a lot of challenges, it doesn't go to the voters. But this is one time, and I don't remember, years ago when I was on the Republican Town Committee, I walked into a meeting one night, and before I left, I was on the town committee. Nobody ever wanted these positions, and the people that got them made it a point to hold on to them until death do us part. This is an interesting year because there's, with the exception of the first district, which is basically the West End, Farmington Avenue area, every district in the city has a challenge. In our district, in the 7th, there's 3 slates running, which should be interesting, 45 people for 15 spots. What do you think is bringing that about? People that want to see it going in a different direction? Or is it just the nature of politics now that...
I think there's a certain necessity. It's part of its economic, and part of its neighborhood needs.
But do you think people are turned off by politics and they want to see different people in there? That's why they're doing this?
Yes, because even in the Republican Party, I had asked for during our meetings that we have a co-chair. By providing the public with a co-chair, you better are able to address their needs.
Well, I think, and the other part, with the town committee, especially on the Democratic side, you need people that are willing to make the commitment for the long haul to make Hartford a better place.
Right.
When a town committee, for like the last year and a half, couldn't even get quorums for their
Right.
monthly meetings.
Isn't that sad?
Something's not right. The people that were elected and duly put into those positions have a responsibility. If you're going to run, you got to take that one night a month, hopefully a lot more than that, out meeting the people and seeing what you can do. But I know when you were town chair, you regularly had meetings.
We had monthly meetings, we had a quorum at every meeting. I also had people coming in from the, as Representative Green said, from the local, state, and federal governments, people that were elected or appointed, guest speakers at every meeting, so we could learn about what the department was that they were from or what elected office. I had about 20% of the town committee members calling me every month asking me not to do this because they already knew these people and it was a waste of their time. Well, the 80% didn't know these people, and this was a way for them to get to know them, to get to know if there's something with these, with what say was, it could have been at one point, George Jepson came in. We had then Comptroller Wyman come in. Different offices. Hartford was the first group to hold. This has been under my chairmanship. We had a debate with all the people running for governor. We were the first city in the entire state of Connecticut to bring the people in. Every meeting I had a guest speaker, so there was always some reason to be at these meetings. And besides doing local things that we were working on.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, and part of the reason we have a lot of the problems we do as a city. I don't think we're taken seriously as any kind of political force when it comes to the legislature or the state capitol, and even on a federal level. And I think that's something we need to really change.
We lost one of our state rep seats. Our chairman is from the 5th district, and we lost the seat that she represents. That she's the district that she's with. She's from the 5th district. I mean, our population has shifted, but when you are chairman of an organization, you are out at that capitol every single moment, fighting for every single elected office that you have in your city. We now have 5 representatives compared to 6. So now the influence of Hartford is less than what it was before.
Well, I don't think our legislative delegation, and no offense because you were in the legislature for years, I don't think they communicate and work
Together.
as a body to get things done. There's a lot of fraction there. I'd like to see more of that bring the unity back.
I want to ask Kenny. Something.
He was just going to make a point.
Okay, go
Before we forget.
Maybe just part of
Okay, go ahead.
When you were in the legislature, did you guys meet on a regular basis to talk about what are the issues for Hartford, what are the needs and stuff like that?
When I was in the legislature, the Hartford delegation did work very well together. We met regularly, and there was representatives who would work with the city. We talked about things. A lot of things that we talked about. There was a lot of debate about, Adrian's Landing and what should happen there.
Right.
And I was supportive of that. But any major development that we do in Hartford, especially coming from the state capitol, you want to tie in employment for city residents. You want to talk about some opportunities for city residents to get a piece of the pie, whether that's contractors, workers, and then employment. So that's very important. In the legislature, we did meet and we did communicate with each other. When we talked about opening up judges to being a more diverse group, we worked together on that. So there was a lot of things that the Hartford delegation did work well together on when I was there. And it was, to me, very important that we realize that at the state capitol, you have mostly suburban legislators.
I know.
And the urban legislators in a sense minority, so you had to really come together. I wish in a sense that we would have worked better with, I think, Bridgeport and New Haven as sort of New London and Stanford
Get a
as
coalition
urban
together.
centers to say, you know, look, we can have a little bit more influence as cities because we have different needs. But Hartford delegation did work well. We tried to make sure that we deliver for the city of Hartford. And I'm proud to say that when I was there, that the amount of monies that the state sent to Hartford was always more than any other town. Of course, we needed more money, and there's some reasons why, because we're the state capital and there's a lot of taxes and properties and stuff like that. But we do have to address the issue of the property tax structure, which comes from the state, and I think we have to deal with that. As the delegation, we fought, we did not win, where we talked about ways that Hartford can do some taxes on people that live outside of Hartford and worked in Hartford, but that was not a popular issue. The MDC project, which people see going on, we wanted to try to build in some jobs for Hartford residents. We didn't get, I think, as much as we wanted, and we need to hold some folks accountable.
Did we get any?
We didn't get. Believe me, they're right in front of my house.
I
They're
was
right
gonna
on
say,
my
you're-
street.
you're heavily
and
impacted
believe
by
me,
that. How many of
there's
your
a lot of
neighbors-
out-of-state
How many of your neighbors got
license
jobs
plates.
off the MDC project?
I don't
You
know.
can't even get to your
I don't
house
know. I don't
with
know
that
any.
construction.
So those are the kind of concerns that the town committee really should be fighting for, to make the elected officials demand these things.
Well, and the other part is, you talked about it before, but there's a lot of names on there that I don't recognize, people running in different districts. A lot of people that are running that I've never seen at a community meeting, never seen at a neighborhood cleanup. And you mentioned the MDC. Let's look at the names on the MDC and see what they've done to make Hartford a better place. You'll see some names there, the chairman of the MDC. You'll see some names running that may have the same last name as him. Yeah. And it's important, and I've gone to community meeting after community meeting talking about this. We should be shutting down those MDC projects until Hartford residents are getting jobs. The way your street's torn up, and to see nothing coming back to that, but people in Pennsylvania are taking paychecks home every Friday night, that's wrong. And it starts with this part of the puzzle, the town committees, that when they come together as a voice and start speaking, hopefully they're representing the needs of their neighborhoods and saying, we need jobs. That's the number one thing.
Right,
Right
and
now.
we know that, and this is federal money, and so, I mean, we got
No,
state
that's not.
money.
It's not. No, but if you look on your MDC chart, you're going to see a chart that we're paying water. You see a sewer additional charge on your water bill. We're helping to pay for that project.
That we voted on, and
But the
accepted
thing
on
is, what-
07.
What
Yeah.
I'm
That's
trying
right.
to say is that if all our money from MDC came from Connecticut, then we could demand more. It's federal.
But we could do it as a city,
I mean,
too.
we can do so much. And as you say, most of the legislative people are from suburban town. Okay, so how much can we get? How much should we get? Yes, we need more jobs in the city of Hartford. But what it was said, that because it's federal money, whatever, then we can't just say, well, we have to give all Hartford people the jobs.
But there's another
you
part
know?
to that puzzle too, though. The MDC cannot dig up any street in Hartford without a permit from the city of Hartford.
And they should be
And what we
meant to
need
put
be
it
doing
back.
is saying, there's an easy way to do this, and there's the hard way. The easy way is you create jobs for Hartford residents, and I don't mean just make up jobs, but jobs with meaningful, we hear all about these P6 licenses. Now, this job has been on the table for years. If they had started with on-the-job training through the jobs funnel or wherever else, with P6 licenses, and those basically the P6 are the people that will go through the trench and hook the plumbing back up to your house. You need a license, you need a plumber's license to be able to do those fittings and everything. If the MDC had started and they were serious about hiring Hartford people,
They
there
could
would have
have
been
hired
training
a lot.
programs 5 or 6 years ago with apprentices that these guys, we'd have an abundance of P6s that don't have to come in from out of state and could be here, especially Hartford residents. It's unfair that over the years, we've suffered the burden of all of the MDC projects, whether it was the landfill, the plant down on
CRA.
Airport Road, that is has made a mess. You know, remember the one where the sewage plant that would stink up the south end?
Yeah.
You know, that's why the chowder pot doesn't have an outside patio because of the smell down there from the sewer plant. So we've put up with all this over the years, and we see very little benefit.
But again,
Even their buildings downtown are taxed.
It goes back to the accountability and who is holding who accountable to make sure that
Well-
we get our piece of the pie.
And that's why we need
Well, who
town
do you
committee
blame?
members that are fighters, that are willing to fight, willing to put their neck on the line for what they believe in, and not just for getting that contract for their friends or themselves, or saying, hey, you know, I got a brother-in-law that needs a job at City Hall. You
Yeah,
know,
if
you'll
that's
get my
some way-
endorsement at
that's how it
election
works
time. You know,
sometimes, yeah.
here, one hand washes the
And
other.
I think Sean made a good point, and that's similar to what we want to do on the 7th district, which Kevin and I and Representative McCrory and some other members are on. But you know, Kevin asked, you know, well, why would somebody get involved? What, you know, what's the interest? I think it's a lot of interest because people really want to see some changes in the
Yeah,
city.
yeah.
They want to see a real dent in the unemployment rate. They really want to see a plan to put people in Hartford to work, because people do want to work. They want to address this educational system. You know, folks in Hartford sometimes just go hook, line, and sinker for everything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure if I'm convinced that the theme school, the magnet schools,
They
the
do
charter
not
school,
work.
Versus sometimes neighborhood schools, is the best way we should have gone. Especially, I'm not sure if we're really even monitoring and evaluating what's going to be the result. A lot of things that we do, we should be about results oriented and solution oriented. Where do we want to go? How do we measure that? And how do we know that this really solves the problem? When Sean talked about bringing candidates into the town committee, that's a great thing. We're going to do that. But there's another step that you have to do after that. You have to say, okay, if I bring you in, here's what my community needs. And they need these kind of things. And we want you to come back in 6 months. And we want to know where you at, where are you in terms of how have you reduced unemployment? What jobs have you gotten? Have the test scores in the schools going up? What about crime and public safety? And what about health issues? And so you tell the politicians to come back after a few months with some real plans. You got to be real careful with any of us when we just send out campaign literature.
See, but
There's going to be 4 basic things that everybody's going to say about campaign literature. I want jobs. We need to do something with education. Crime is a problem. We care about your health. Okay.
But what are you going to do
All of us
about
going to
that?
say it.
What are you going to do about
What are you
it?
going to do about it? And what I'm saying is that you have a group of people I know in the 7th that we're with that are new, that are teachers, that are paraprofessionals, that are community folks, that are former representatives. I'm a social worker. You have community activists. You have community activists in some of the towns. You have people who have been concerned about city services in your district and in your slate. And so we got folks who are saying, you know what? We want to go in a new direction. We go through this every 10 years with redistricting. Let's stop playing these games.
Okay,
let's have people responsible.
We've got a phone call. Hopefully we can hear it okay in here. Go ahead, Trish. Go ahead, caller. Caller, go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yep, you're kind of muffled, but go ahead. Caller, go ahead. We can hear you.
I'm not hearing.
Trish, I don't think they're hearing us. Go ahead and talk. Ask your question. Trish, can you just put them on hold?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question. Okay, Trish, they're not hearing us. So can you put them on hold and just ask them to, as soon as you put them on, go ahead and ask the question?
Okay.
Okay.
Disconnected.
Oh, caller, if you can call back and we'll try to listen to you. Just go ahead and just tell them to ask the question. Okay, go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Gene from Hartford, and I know Kenny because he used to be my state representative. Recently, they had the redistricting in the state of Connecticut. I thought we were going to be in District 7, but now we got a note from the Register of Voters saying that you will be voting at District 8, Annie Fisher School Gym. I have a problem with that. Also, a problem with the housing. As you know, I live in the Bowles Park area, and which is controlled by CHFA, which is Connecticut Housing Finance Corporation. Due to the fact that they don't have monies to repair and monies to run this place, they're going to close it down.
I thought they're redoing it.
I don't care how much money Governor Malloy is allotting for the next 10 years. I think it's over $350 million. That is not enough for the whole state of Connecticut. All the moderate income projects that we have in the state of Connecticut. And we're in dire straits right now. And CHFA, they're tired of taking the loss. They had to write off the mortgage, then they had to write off the rents that are not being paid. So I want to know, what do we do from here? And Kenny, I'm glad to see you here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gene. Let me just clarify, because this is going to be very confusing to a lot of people. Even though Kevin and I represent Macquarie, Gene, yourself, we're in the 7th Assembly District. Within the 7th Assembly District, there's 5 polling places. And for each polling place, they have a number. So you're actually in polling place number 8 in the 7th District. We have polling place number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So sometimes people may say, well, wait a minute, they're saying I'm at polling place 6. Wait a minute, I thought I was in district number 7. And so I think with all of us, you have to clarify with your residents that their polling place is different than their assembly district. So the polling place is number 8. We actually, that are running, we did not agree with that. The way the register of voters did the line for the new districts really was not conducive to encouraging people to vote.
Right.
We're very unsatisfied that you have to go from Bowes Park to Annie Fisher when there's a voting place at Rawson for you that you could have gone to. So we're not real happy, but this is again why we're running. What we're saying is that the register of voters, the town clerk, they should have communicated with the community as to where's the best voting place. Now that the district has changed, what are people used to doing? Because these are the kind of things that they're supposed to be in touch with the community to talk about it. And the previous town committee should have been working with them to come up with what's natural, in a sense, for the community. In terms of the housing, $350 million over 10 years sound like a lot, and you're correct, Gene. When I was state representative, we've had a number of plans up for Bowes Park and Westbrook Village. The state of Connecticut has a very limited number of what we call state moderate income units that the state actually own and control. These are different than low income federal projects, and these are different if they have sometimes have some small city projects. The state has moderate income units, a very few of them. The state has never invested the kind of monies to keep those units in place. Instead of this $350 million over 10 years across the state, it should have really been a targeted amount of money to the very few moderate incomes, and Bowes Park and Westbrook Village should be seeing 100, 150 for a year. That really should be more realistic. So it sounds like a lot of money. It won't do what we're expected to do around housing across the state, and it's really $35 million a year for about 7 or 8 state moderate units. It's not enough. Sounds good, but this is again where you got to realize that it sounds like it's a lot of money. It's not going to get the effect, the results. It's not going to solve the problem. And that's where you have to get past the sound bites to the reality of, well, what is this going to do?
Yeah, is it because the federal government is cutting back and,
These
funding,
are state moderate units. They get no monies from the feds.
Okay.
These are not federal units.
Okay.
But everybody is seeing the belt being tightened.
Right.
But there's areas you need to look at and other areas where money
Exactly.
is thrown at that's wasteful.
I'm sorry.
But I think, it's important that, Jean called in here because she probably doesn't know who her town committee people are. And
that would have been a good question.
Yes.
We need to ask the callers that.
Luckily you're knowledgeable, Ken, and things like this. But there's people across the city that they should be able to go to with questions, even if it's, I'm new to Hartford, when is my trash picked up, or how do I do this?
Right.
Call 311.
Where is my voting
They'll
place?
tell you. And those are things that, we may not know all the answers, but you should have people that in the community that you could reach out to, or if you disagree with it, say, I'm not the type of person who'll go to a council meeting. You're my town committee person.
Exactly.
Will you go and take my message
Yeah.
forward?
Right.
Me and my neighbors are concerned about this.
That's a good point.
You talked about money being wasted. I chair redevelopment in Hartford.
That's something I
And this
wanted to
past
touch
year, the present mayor insisted that we take over Capitol West building. And we're wasting almost $2 million, more than that over 20 years when it's bonded, to take this building and to rip it down. And I mean, that's money that could have gone back to neighborhoods to help. I mean, it's $2 million sounds like a lot, like you said, but it's not. But it's still money that could help actual people instead of taking an eyesore, which could have been made into housing, could have been made into.
That's exactly what I was going
Could
to
have
say.
been given to
I
a grocery
see-
store downtown.
Look,
Grocery store from Simsbury.
look, we talk about
trip
homelessness
to
in
Hawaii
Hartford. And here it is, we have a big old building, and I think the structure is good, isn't
I
it?
voted against it.
All
I was
right.
the only one voting
But I
against
see
it.
this as an opportunity to do individual, housing, like one room and a bathroom or something like that for some of these homeless people.
But see,
And
Hyacinth-
it could be managed with a 24-hour supervision.
Hyacinth, but after the fact, when these things are already voted on, done deal, it's too late to start talking about them.
Yeah.
If you have town committees that are meeting once a month, as you mentioned, State Representative McCrory is part of our slate, so I would hope that we'll have his ear on a regular
Yeah.
basis and sit down with him monthly and say, this is what our community needs. There's an abandoned building here that's an eyesore. Here's some ideas we have
Yeah.
For it.
to make that usable instead of another parking lot. So these are things that should be going on across the city. You have the ear of one of your state reps maybe periodically.
Well, actually, I haven't seen my state rep in maybe over a year
Well.
or so.
Which state rep is that?
Well, the two of them in general.
Yeah.
Does anybody know who they are? Anyway, Senator John
Representative
Fonfara
Robles,
and Senator
Senator Fonfara,
Yeah,
and-
these are two people. Well, the last time I saw him was when they were talking in the press conference about the red light for the city. But he used to come to our meeting when I invited him, but all of a sudden I haven't seen him. And I say, how can you represent us when you know not what our issues are?
And even the red light, and I was up at the Capitol when that was the issue, and there's some pros and cons to it. But to me, one of the ways that I dealt with as a representative, I would talk to people, I would go to the community, and I would ask them, is this kind of where you agree with or what you stand? And then what are the pros and cons to it? And even if I disagreed, I would tell them why,
Still listen.
but at least, give them an opportunity to tell me something. And, again, the red light is a big issue. If the mayor and Senator Fonfara supports it, then it'd be nice if the town committee says, this is what my senator and my mayor wants to happen. What does the community think?
Right.
Because my concern is always about protecting the citizens. And just to make sure they're protected, because with anything, and we found this out even running for a town committee this time, you don't always get the right information from City Hall. And if you don't get the right information,
Very true.
you're at fault, and then you may have to have some consequences because people are just not giving you the information.
But that's also part of the town committee. If you have somebody that's making, let's just say, $85,000 a year in a position that they're endorsed by the town committee, you want to know that $85,000 is being spent the best way possible. Not with misinformation and on a wing and a prayer we run operations. And that's where you have the choice, or you have the potential to say, no, it's time we go in a different direction. We endorse somebody else that's truly a professional and can get that job done, no matter what it is. Whether it's town council, anybody that can, and I think you were both at the nominating conventions. You went through part of it firsthand, but anybody that can say, we've got the best candidates possible for town council because it was the right thing to do and they had Hartford's best interest at heart, you're totally mistaken. It was all political wheeling and dealing, and we don't have the best people up there.
Is
So,
it because it's lack of education or letting people know what their roles and
it's
responsibilities
because
are?
we have
Again,
Chicago-style politics here. It's not about what's best. It's about who's taking care of who. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. And we had the previous administration was a master at that. The town committee was loaded with people that just couldn't say no. They either were nonprofits funded by the city, they worked for the city, and it's very hard, the same as we just saw on the Board of Education. It's very hard to stand your ground and say, no, I don't agree with that, I can't support it, when you know that that carrot, whether it's your job or your funding, is being dangled in front of you. So we need to cleanse the town committee and start cleansing the entire process of that. Go for change, go for people that are willing to speak out, are willing to say what's on their mind, have a good understanding of what's right and what's wrong, and are willing to put that to use to make Hartford a better place.
And you mentioned the Board of Education, and I think that's a discussion that, I'll be honest with you, I am not in support of the mayor appointing 5 members to the Board of Education.
But that's in the charter.
The charters can change.
Well,
and-
then we need to look at the charter.
And that was a reaction to when the state took over and that people basically said, we're not gonna go back to 9-person elected board from the
Elected.
public.
Right.
They said that, and we bought it. We bought it because there was a lot of issues. Once again, if you can tell me that the educational system for our children in Hartford is so much greater now,
No,
then I'll be saying, hey, it worked.
no, it hasn't.
We know
But
the
It isn't.
believe me, I'm still getting calls, and I still get calls and still support and help people. I have a young, I call her a young lady, she's 90 years old. She has property on Garden Street that her husband basically managed. She can't manage it. People been dumping trash. The city sent her to court. I'm saying, well, wait a minute. She's 90 years old, she lost the property. Can't you work with her?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
never been to court in her life. She comes in a wheelchair, and I'm saying there could have been a better way.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is, elected officials, town committee, you have to know your neighbor.
Right.
So you can say, wait a minute, time out, guys. We have to, these are folks that invest in your city. She lives in the city, she owns some property, but her husband died, so she really didn't know
Right,
about
she
that
needs
stuff.
help.
Before you bring her to court, let's try to work this out.
But we did that in our neighborhood where we're trying to work, we call it that Barry Square Triangle, where we had some blighted property. And what we decided to do is to work with the owners of these properties and bring the city in to say, well, what can you do
Right.
to help?
Right.
Okay, we're giving them the time to do what they need to do. But if they're not working with us, then
Yeah.
we'll say, city, do your next best.
Well, there's a lot of potential for good work to come out of the town committees if the people on the town committee understand their purpose and really care about their neighborhoods. And I think that's some of what we need to see. Even schools, I can tell by your talking that education is part of your passion. And the fact of the matter is, many of our neighborhood schools are still failing.
Oh, they
And the
are.
only reason that we hear this mantra all the time, oh, averages are up, we're doing well, we're
That's
graduating
just-
more kids.
that's just a
is because
facade.
you've thrown in the cream of the crop from the magnet schools.
Well, even
if
that
you
is-
averaged out just for, let's say, Weaver, Buckley, and Hartford High, what they're graduating,
It's all a
and
facade.
what the grades are,
not
it would
real.
probably be a lot lower than what we're being told.
It
But
is.
when you put in the magnet high schools, it naturally is going to bring those averages up. One of the things I have to say, in our slate, your slate, and even to a certain extent your slate, is the younger people that are on it and getting involved. Hyacinth mentioned somebody that's involved with her slate that was somebody that originally came to one of her meetings. When I was running for council, he heard me speak, he contacted me, and I don't want to call him a kid because he's 25, 26. He's like a sponge though. He wants to soak up all he can about not so much politics, but more about government. I know we have a few people in our meetings that I've been very impressed with, people I never even knew, that just want to do the right thing, are, very educated and want to know, let's try this, let's try that, have a lot of good ideas. It's not the stagnant, old-time politics. And I think that's what I'm excited about. 45 people running for 15 slots, chances are good I may not even get elected, but to see people that are coming out, want to get involved, and nothing against older people. Jerry and I are both older people. But there's a time and a place, and I think one of the things we've failed as a city for the most part is mentoring younger people to get involved and want to come along with the process. 10 or 15 years from now, I don't want to be going to council
and
meetings.
You should
and
talk
things.
about the mentoring. When we talked about, Kevin and I in our town committee, each of us, when we're elected, will take on a person under 30 to mentor. And not so much that we don't know what their interests are, we're not saying they're gonna run, but they may just be interested in government. So we're committed to saying, look, we really have to say, if we're gonna say, We want to teach people, we want to train them. We're not going to be doing this forever. We want to bring up young people to understand this. We're going to do it. And so that's the kind of thing we're going to do. We're going to really change the dynamics.
Ken, I have a question for you. If you were to remove the scores from the magnet school and some of the other specialized schools, and just run the scores of the others, how do we stack up?
I would not know specifically how we stack up. And it's very difficult because there's very few, if any, neighborhood schools left, to be honest.
They label them with names of stuff like that.
There's very few because what happens is that they got these theme schools now, and so kids picking theme schools. Some of the schools have now went from K-5 to K-8, which offers a different kind of dynamic. So I don't know how they're doing it. What I do know though is that we have a problem in Connecticut with the achievement gap, with people of color and people from low income not really obtaining on the test scores as well as Caucasians in the state. And what's happening in Connecticut, unfortunately, is that you're beginning to see educationally where Latinos, African Americans, a lot of immigrants are falling behind versus Caucasians and some of the Asians. So what we got to be more concerned about, even sometimes I think that some of the test scores and even just in your city, is this widening gap of education of young people in the state of Connecticut. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to find, which we need to address, you're going to find in urban centers where you have more diverse communities, their children are going to be left behind educationally, and other folks are going to be advancing. What's going to happen in 10 years? They're not going to get jobs, those children. They're going to go to jail. They're not going to have take care of themselves health-wise. Lower education, they don't take care of themselves health-wise. We know all of this. This is not anything that we don't know. So we really have to invest in the education, and again, like I say, we have to monitor it. So if those young people are not meeting certain scores at certain levels, we need a different kind of strategy to get them somewhere because their life outcomes are going to be much greater.
We're going to have to pay.
And we know that. I mean, that's just, the research is out there. So at this point, I'm more interested in all of the children in Connecticut because there's a big gap.
Well, and that's a key to economic development also, to have an educated workforce. Employers aren't going to bring companies here if they don't have the educated people to take those jobs.
I was told that Connecticut has a couple of hundred or thousand jobs around, engineer, and they can't find Connecticut people for engineers.
Well, look at the money that's being spent for the new laboratory out at UConn.
Right.
That's going to take a huge educated workforce. I think they're talking thousands of jobs there. And those are people that are very strong in the sciences, have degrees in biology, chemistry.
And yet we are not doing very well with science and biology in our schools in general.
We don't do well in a lot of things.
But just like Jerry said, if you're going to have a theme school of science and math and
Make
engineering,
it be.
STEM, if you're going to have a theme school, science, technology, education, and mathematics with the University of Hartford, if you're going to have a math and science school, if you're going to have pathways to technologies, you should be taking those young people and saying, okay, here's these jobs going to be at UConn, in our state money, state investment. What are going to be the skills? And then the lab should partner with those schools and make sure those kids get education after high school and secure that education with a promise to come back and do some service. Right. That's how you connect.
Yeah.
That's how we have to be a lot more creative. I was a state representative that was about results and solutions. Not so much about the politics. I probably could have done better if I was about the politics in terms of where you go in terms of advancement, but it wasn't about
You only
me.
needed, 3 votes?
Well, I had the 3 votes. They took them away from me.
Anyways, but yeah, it's, like we've got, in our district, Weaver, which is...
And the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right in back of Weaver, the STEM school.
But Weaver is not an inviting school. It's like going into a prison. Directions are stenciled on the walls, and it's just not a good school. But we also have the Journalism Academy, and we don't use that.
Why do you need a journalism academy?
Well, start giving kids real life experience. If you're going to a journalism academy, have them producing the Board of Education program.
Oh, please.
Have them putting on GED classes. Have a camera in the classroom for algebra class that if
No.
a kid wants to
And
watch
there's
it,
more
they
technology, folks.
they
That's
can
what we
watch
need.
it on public access.
What you got to understand, and I've learned that, I've been in the school system, I'm still in there watching what's going on. It's a label that's
we're
put in a
getting-
building.
We're getting a wrap-up
Okay.
signal. We've only got a couple minutes
Most
left.
of them are not reality, okay? And the children are not getting the resource to do what they need to do.
Put a switch on
Another,
the microphone.
another question that I'm often asked, what are we doing about, ex-offenders and their inability to get jobs and whatnot? They do offer educational programs in the prison. In fact, many people have gotten their high school diplomas and GED in prison. I believe there should be something formulated where we could test these individuals so we know exactly where they stand as far as their ability to achieve and do certain things.
Maybe
Then they'll
vocational?
become more,
But again,
It's
Jerry, that
easier
comes
to sell
down to
them.
accountability. Everybody talks about ex-offenders and programs at election time, and then we see very little happen. We still have the buses that come to South Green or Albany Avenue, or the vans from
drop the
corrections, and
people
drop
off?
the former prisoners off. And we need to start holding people accountable and say, at election time, you promised us this. And it's up to it's also, the town committees have a role in all this. They haven't exerted it in the past.
We have a
Yep.
chance of holding people accountable because the council now is putting together a charter revision commission.
Yeah, see?
And as a new.
We can change the Board of Education.
When we get elected on March 6th, we have a chance to change the Board of Ed to elected, to change the town clerk to elected, to change even.
Registered
the
voters.
P&Z,
But the election is
all
coming
the
up
different
for board
commissions.
members, so
Well,
that's
but it's
an
time that we go back, And
opportunity.
even council and mayor, why are they 4-year terms? If they don't get something done in 2 years, we need to change them.
Well, and the other
But-
part of this
4 years
is,
is a long
we're getting
time.
a wrap-up sign. We've only got a minute or so left. But the other part of this is that in a city with roughly 34,000 registered Democrats, by district, probably 200 or 300 will be out voting on primary day.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
'cause it's
that,
that-
we need to get people involved. If you've never voted before in your life, go out on March 6th and cast a vote, as long as you have to be a registered Democrat. So that's the other part of this. You can't sit at home and watch us. You can't read the paper and just sit back and say, well, somebody else will go vote.
Right.
You
But
gotta
Kev-
take the time to go out
Believe
and
me,
fill
every
out that
vote
ballot.
counts.
but Kevin,
Yeah, but-
We know in our
before,
district too.
before you vote, take a moment and do a little research on the
Thank
candidates.
you.
But first of all, if every person who's running for town committee should go out and know what's going on in their neighborhood and hold their elected official accountable, we could have gotten a lot more done.
Well, in my district, District 4, we go door to door throughout the term, to meet the people in our districts. My team is running on row B.
Okay, we're out of time.
We're out of
By the
time.
time she runs the credits, we'll be off the air.
Yeah.
So go ahead,
We'll be
Trish.
talking more about that.
Take us
as the
out.
month
But
comes
thank you
up.
for joining us March 6th.
Yeah.
Get to know the candidates and get out and vote for town committee.